Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to this exclusive fireside chat with two industry veterans. I'm Pooja Bothra, Senior Content Lead, ETHR World, and it's my honor to introduce the speakers. I'd like to welcome Santosh Chirian, EVP Head L&D HDFC Bank. Santosh has led multicultural teams and has a consistent track record of performance excellence across HR work streams in large and respected multinational organizations in India and US. I'd also like to welcome Raghav Gupta, MD India and APAC Coursera. Raghav is a strategic execution-focused entrepreneurial business leader with proven track record in the consumer, internet, and management consulting industries. He is responsible for growing Coursera's consumer and enterprise business in the region, thereby bringing the world's best education to learners across Asia Pacific. This fireside chat is a part of a series that focuses on mapping the business impact of learning. Business have entered a phase where traditional styles of working is overridden by agile digital technologies. These technologies are also changing customer expectations and benchmark of satisfaction. To that point, organizations are at different levels of the transformation journey and require employees to own new age skills. With that, my first question to you, Santosh, is in the last year, we saw the financial services industry pivoting to a high degree of digital transformation. How has HDFC been able to align skills transformation in this regard, especially concerning developing subject matter experts?
Thank you, Pooja, for asking the question. I think this is a very germane question given the times we are in. Aligning skills is imperative as it has to stay in step, I believe, with the overall transformation efforts. So our focus has been to help develop an agile mindset amongst learners, which means we focus on breaking down skill and knowledge elements into bite-sized modules to ensure better uptake. And this, I believe, also has to be in tandem with what's evolving on the business side. It cannot be isolated and independent on it. Secondly, familiarity and comfort with evolving technology as it relates to learning has become really, really critical. This also means that learning cannot be a one and done event, but it has to be a continuous process. Unlike the past, where there were designated learning calendars, etc., with specific days earmarked for training events within courses, we now have the ability to enable anytime, anywhere learning that is personalized by leveraging technology. Then there is this concept of learning in the flow of work. You have the channels, you have the topics, you have the recommendations that are pushed, you have featured content, etc. And this is done by using a platform that functions in a way like an internal Google of sorts, which essentially facilitates immediate application of learning. So there's a lot of work that's happening, and that work will continue to happen in the future too, to help develop our colleagues to lead and not lag in the digital era that's very much a part of our lives. We've also seen that when we launched our mobile learning platform, which people can access using their mobile phones, etc., and we had done that sometime in October of 2020, there has been a great uptake of that. And we also see that there are platforms that allow for democratizing content creation and access to it, in addition to providing the benefit for them to look at content libraries which have world-class content. And I know Coursera is also in that space, and where content is also rapidly updated. So we have some of this, as I said, some of this is already in place and some of it is work in progress. Because at the end of it, we want to make sure that capability transformation runs parallel to digital transformation. And we also believe in the mantra of fail safe and fail fast. And so essentially, we allow for experimentation that kind of, in a way, also fosters rapid cycle feedback and making sure that all of these are done in a way to build capability is encouraged. To top it all, we are also very keen on building digital acumen amongst our leaders, because embracing digital ways of working and, more importantly, digital ways of learning also calls for a mind shift change. So while parallelly creating the infrastructure and delivering learning offerings using the digital route, we are also making sure that there is that preparation in terms of the mindset shift, and where we develop a mindset to embrace these changes is fostered and cultivated. Finally, I must also say that as a learning leader, that there are many channels, not challenges, many channels to deliver learning that eventually builds capability. But it also is important that we are clear about how intelligently we take advantage of the intelligence of the channels that will be critical for building capability that is current as well as future proof. So that would be my response in terms of what we are doing to stay in step as far as skills transformation is concerned, especially as we have gone down the digital path.
Thank you, Santosh, for sharing those points. Very interesting. And I totally agree that for most organization, it is work in progress. Raghav, going to you, how do you see, effective transformation taking place, and how is talent being developed to meet the increasing pace of new skills in organizations?
Thanks, Pooja. Firstly, pleasure to be here, and I enjoyed listening to Santosh's opening comments. A lot of them echo with me as well. And just as quick context, right? And I think we're seeing this with businesses in the country. Automation was already happening. I think COVID has accelerated a lot of the impact of that automation. So we see industry largely going through double disruption: automation due to technology, as well as COVID and work from home and so on. And we've seen on our platform, we work with thousands of companies. We work with many banking, financial services companies as well. And we've seen that the agenda for digital skills, data related skills, and also human skills, if anything, has become more important for learning leaders. And the opportunity for learning leaders to have impact at a business outcome level has in fact, become even more important. I'm sure, Santosh is having conversations with his business leaders, talking and asking for business outcomes. I mean, I of course don't know if that's happening at HDFC or not, but I see that at a lot of companies that we work with as well. And I think the successful programs that we see with companies in the country largely make sure that they get four things right. These are fairly simple, straightforward things which are easier said than done, but they take quite an effort in terms of being done. And these are, I would say, plan, curate, engage, and measure. So firstly, when it comes to plan, thinking about what are these skills that are needed in the future and how do you future proof as well, taking a cue from what Santosh shared. I think getting that right is the starting point. Which are those skills that my organization needs for the future? Not just technical skills or technology skills, but also the human skills. How do we all work from home? How do we lead teams seamlessly, and so on and so forth? Second is getting the curriculum right? How do you enable people to be able to get the right learning to happen? And, as working professionals, our first focus for most of us is the work that we do. And then after that is possibly the opportunity to learn. And so how do you make that second piece, which is the learning piece, straightforward by getting the right curriculum in front of people? I've also seen that curriculum needs to be a combination of knowledge, but also hands-on practice. So how do you do a combination of some of that? The third piece, which is important, is engagement. And like I said, as a working professional, for everybody, the primary focus, the primary priority is the work itself. And learning is becoming increasingly important. So how do you engage people to be able to get them to actually take this learning, to be able to apply that learning in work? And then, like any good program like this would do, how do you measure, right? And we've seen actually organizations go from measuring more historical metrics like learning hours and completion rates to now more forward-looking metrics, which is what is the skill development that happened on my platform, and where do I compare myself and my organization's skill development with other peers and other competitors in the country, outside the country as well. So how do you take meaningful measurement to happen? And I think programs that do this right, plan, curate, engage, and measure, are the ones who are able to deliver the business outcomes that learning leaders are being asked of in today's environment and in today's world.
Very interesting, Raghav. Santosh, so in HDFC, how are you looking at continuously reskilling your employees across various functions with emerging technologies? And also, what are some of the challenges you face in delivering the learning strategy?
Thank you for asking that question, Pooja. And I must start by saying, or asking a rhetorical question, so to speak, we really don't have a choice when it comes to continuous reskilling, right? Because if we are not skilled enough or we don't provide enough capability building opportunities, we tend to get left behind. So for us, yeah, emerging technologies is definitely an area that we need to look at. But more critically, we need to really understand the business environment, the business strategy, the challenges of the business, the environment in which it functions, or the macro environment, if you want to call it, the direction it wants to take, etc. And then ensure that the relevant content and more importantly, the experiences are created or given access to by hosting it on platforms to build capabilities and help us stay competitive and perhaps top of the heap, so to speak. So I would like to allude to what Raghav had also said. See, any learning that we do cannot be distinct from the business outcomes we want to help achieve. There has to be a connection between the two. So in a way, when we look at the technologies that we use, the question is always, what is it that will help us with speed to market in identifying, curating, creating, and delivering offerings that is pivotal for business performance or individual performance that contributes to the collective performance of the business per se. And I would say, rather than using the word challenge, the opportunity for us is to really partner very closely with the business as performance consultants. And I'm choosing this term very carefully, as performance consultants, to ensure that the support we extend to continuous reskilling is timely, efficient, and most importantly, effective or impactful. We can't afford to be pure play learning professionals. We need to have a solid and deep understanding of the business to be effective. We need to view the offering that we deliver as a solution to a business problem, so to speak. If we don't do that, and if we just merely view it as a learning issue or a learning problem, then most of our efforts essentially will end up being suboptimal. So I think when it comes to continuous reskilling, while on the one side we need to be ready with the infrastructure that is needed, stay ahead of the curve in identifying what is required in terms of helping us to be ready for purpose and for growth, we also cannot ignore or neglect the fact that we need to take into account the business needs and the environment it is working in, along with its challenges, etc., into perspective for us to be really effective as a learning and development partner for the business that we support.
Thank you, Santosh. Raghav, so what would your suggestions, advice be to organizations who need to create job-ready, have their employees develop job-ready skills, within their current talent pools? So, what is the best way to leverage today's opportunity to prepare the employees?
Yeah, so on our side, we've been actually bringing a lot of innovation to the table because obviously, as the needs for industries change, right, we need to be able to serve those needs as well. And we've seen three things that have brought quite a bit of value to organizations that are undergoing this period of rapid change. And I'll talk about these three briefly. So the first is called skill sets, the second are academies, and the third is hands-on projects. So we found that it's getting increasingly tough to spend time planning what skills should be there in a job. And so we launched this new capability on Coursera called skill sets. And skill sets is basically, a product feature which enables an organization to deploy a turnkey job-based learning to develop a targeted skill. And these are important words a little bit, right? It's turnkey, it's job-based. So let's say I'm a business analyst in a bank, And because there's so much data creation that is happening in a bank, the bank says to me, we want you to become a data analyst because that's where a lot of the future of our work is going to be. So a skill set is something which says, look, we can enable you to go from a business analyst to a data analyst. Firstly, to go and become a data analyst, here are the 6 skills that you need. Secondly, in those 6 skills, here are the proficiency levels that you need. In some you need to be 80%, in some you need to be 95%, and so on and so forth. Third, you can take a diagnostic to decide and to figure out where do you stand today. And fourth, here is the content that you should take to be able to then go from your existing proficiency level to those proficiency levels that you need to have. So one term which I'll leave with you, which I think we've seen organizations derive a lot of value, is implementing skill sets as a part of Coursera's work with them. Second, we've said there are certain areas where there are big focus opportunities in organizations, given what we are seeing in industry. And so for each of those areas, we've built out an academy to say, look, at an organization-wide level, if you're looking to drive digital capability, then you need to be driving data capability. You need to be driving, capability in your marketing. You need to be driving some capability, possibly in software engineering, cloud and IT, pretty much relevant for every single organization, and so on and so forth. So we built out these academies. And we've said there are people in an organization who need deep skilling. These might be, especially folks who are working on digital transformation, technology skills, and so on. And then there are people who need just literacy level skills, right? I may be a bank manager at a retail branch, and I'm happy to just get literacy level skills. I don't need deep skilling that need to be happening. So these academies take care of that. And then the third thing that we've done is there are certain people who need reskilling, right? So a bank may say again that, look, I have a marketing team, but I'd like my marketing team to be more data oriented. So how do you enable a marketing team to become more data oriented? So those are the purposes that an academy is able to serve as well. And we've seen good value being delivered as a part of that. And then the last thing I'll mention fairly quickly is hands-on learning as well. And I'll come back to my example of the business analyst who we are trying to make into a data analyst. Now, a tool that this particular data analyst might use might be a tool like Tableau, for example, which is a tool for data visualization. So this individual might come and take a course on data visualization. But what would be powerful is if he or she also gets to practice data visualization. Now, when you have to practice, you need to buy the software, install it on your machine, get a data set, all of that. We've said, look, we'll enable you to do this in a virtual environment. So there are guided projects on the Coursera platform, 2,000 of them, which can actually enable you to use many, many tools without actually having to, worry about how am I going to get the software, where am I going to practice this, and so on and so forth. So if I were to summarize, skill sets, academies, and guided projects is an approach that we've seen deliver significant value to many organizations that we work with.
Santosh, my last question to you is that, when freshers come and join your bank, so there is some skill gap, that needs to be, filled very quickly. So how are you doing that? How digitally ready is your bank to, upskill the freshers and get them ready to work remotely?
Some of what I said earlier may have partially answered this question, but again, let me put it this way. Instead of asking how digital ready we are, I think the question would be how digital hungry, because at the end of the day, when we look at the younger generation, they are exposed to technologies and apps, which in a way helps them to achieve that instant gratification for information or learning, etc. So I must also say that we need to be careful that in understanding that we can never reach a place or a point where we can aver that we've arrived. So when we talk about the younger generation that is entering our organization, we really need to see what is it that will excite them when it comes to learning and will enthuse them to embrace learning, because that's really going to be critical for them to be successful in the work that they do. So how quickly can we equip them for that? So have to constantly consider leveraging tools or even looking at apps that will allow them to access learning as they pace and also give them the opportunity to apply it to the extent needed almost immediately, because only then we know that the capability has been built. So it's just not access to learning, but also ensuring that they have built the required capabilities for them to hit the ground running and deliver the results that we expect of them. So if you look at it, we do have right now, I'm sure that you've heard of terms like the learning experience platforms. You have like Coursera, you have the learning content providers. Then in addition to that, we're also talking about extended reality, augmented reality, and all these tools and platforms that are available for them to use. So I would also say that at the same time, we need to be careful, because it is just not about the features and functionalities and how great they are, because sometimes we do get enamored by the features and functionalities of the tool per se, that we end up losing sight of the actual need of the learners. So if I have to summarize my answer, I think first is to understand how the younger generation learns. Secondly, what will equip them to learn quickly? And for that, what is the kind of infrastructure or the experiences that we need to create? Thirdly, you know, focusing on the learner more importantly than anything else, not trying to retrofit what is there in the market and say that this is what we assume will help the learner learn quickly, but really try and understand, even when they're working remotely, what is the kind of bandwidth they may have, where are they located, how can we ensure that while we use our best in class technology, etc., it doesn't become a kind of poor experience for them because of lack of let's say technological infrastructure. But how can we make it easy for them to access learning, learn, provide feedback, get mentoring or coaching to the extent that is needed? How do we make it interactive, and how do we make it less obtrusive or intrusive, so to speak, so that they welcome what is delivered as a learning offering rather than, like I said earlier, be repulsed by it? And as a learning function, we also have to continually keep learning and understanding the kind of generations that we are dealing with. Because in a bank, we just don't have the younger generations. We have people from different generations. So we have to be really nimble, and we have to be really flexible to make sure that whatever we do, it caters to the various styles of learning, it caters to the various generations of learners. And at the end of it, we need to make sure that the learning happens and translates into capability that can be applied on the job.
Thank you, Santosh. Raghav, my last question to you is, what do you recommend on how organizations should define the success metrics of their learning investments?
So as I was saying, I think the traditional metrics have been looking at things like learning hours and completion rates and so on. Those continue to be relevant. I think some of the business impact level outcomes that we are seeing companies measure are firstly just delivering on strategic goals, right? We work with this bank in Singapore, and they said, look, we know that if we acquire a customer digitally, a retail customer digitally, the lifetime value of that customer is 2x that of somebody that we acquire physically in a physical retail branch. And so they actually put metrics saying our digital transformation should deliver X percentage of more customers coming in through the digital route as opposed to the physical route. And then a lot of the digital transformation exercise was geared towards being actually able to say, look, did we acquire more customers digitally or physically? Because it has business outcome impact. So actually just delivering on whatever that strategic goal was, I think is one of the things that I think is a good metric to have. The second thing, which I think is increasingly becoming relevant, is, many companies, irrespective of their business, are investing more and more in technology, right? All of us are using technology more in our work. And that being said, I think there's an Accenture study which says that about 10-12% of that investment is fully being realized because, either the investment was not deployed correctly or people are not fully trained to be able to use that technology and so on. And I think increasingly learning programs are able to help organizations realize the full value of that technology. If you're implementing an HRMS system, or if you're implementing a data analytics system, or if you're implementing a CRM, right, a Salesforce platform or anything like that, if people are not fully comfortable using that technology, then you will not get the business outcome of that technology. And I think providing some amount of learning can actually enable that to be fully realized. So in the interest of time, I'll focus on those two and stop with that.
Yeah. If I may add,
Sure.
Pooja, very quickly to what Raghu was saying, I think when it comes to metrics, it has to be defined and agreed with the business stakeholders right at the beginning, because people have seen enough of the L1 metrics that are being shared ad nauseum across organizations. They really want to see if there is an investment of time and effort in learning what has it produced in terms of the outcomes. And agreement or identifying outcomes right at the beginning is going to be critical for the metrics to be meaningful and impactful.
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you, Santosh. This has been a very, very energizing fireside chat, and we've had wonderful insights. Viewers, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you, everyone.